Hey there viewers, welcome back to the Ray of All Trades channel. Today in the shop we're looking at a KTM mini bike. I honestly don't know anything about it. Know what size motor it is or anything like that. It's got some aftermarket stuff on it, and the complaint is that when he adds fuel to it, it just pours out of the carburetor. So I'm guessing it's just going to be a carburetor rebuild. Cool little bike. But let's see if we can duplicate the problem and see what's going on. Let me just check and see if it's got any fuel in the tank. And it definitely does. I don't want to add any unless I have to. He uses a special racing fuel, and it's got a really funny smell to it. I don't know if that's normal or not, but let's turn on the fuel and see what actually happens. Where are we leaking from? Put this down here just in case. So this would be the fuel shutoff. Runs down this line here. It's going to fill up the float bowl until the needle seats off. Once that does that, the fuel should stop flowing. What he's complaining about is the fact that it doesn't stop and it just keeps filling up more and more fuel. Eventually overflows. So give me a second. I'm going to pull off these two clamps so that I can see the carburetor so that the fuel is not running back into the cylinder, because I'm not seeing it right away. I don't know if you guys can hear the air conditioner in the background. It's a scorcher out today for Virginia. Heat index somewhere around 100 degrees. I don't know. So I've got the old air conditioner in the shop rolling. Cheating, I know. Just in case y'all didn't see me, I turned the fuel back off before I went to go grab all of the screwdrivers or anything I was going to need. So I'd like to see what's going on without flooding the engine. Let's see if I can get this somewhat flat. Alright, I'm going to try to set the carburetor somewhat flat. So, looking at the carburetor, this right here is your throttle. It runs up to the throttle up top. All it does is pull this valve up and down. Right, and then this right here is your fuel line. I wonder if that fuel is supposed to smell and look like that. He said it was racing fuel, but I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. Anyway, should be another hose coming off of here to the bottom, and then when the fuel level fills up this bowl, let me change the frame here. When the fuel level rises in this bowl, it shuts off, the float level comes up, and it shuts off the fuel flow coming in this line right here. But let's just set this somewhat flat, turn on the fuel, and see what it's doing. It's about as flat as I can get it. So any fuel that comes out is not going to go into the engine right now. But let's see what occurs. I anticipate if it fills up too much, it'll probably come out this hole right here. Just want to turn it to the sideways. That way I can see if it starts actually coming out the intake or something like that. Because it's not coming out too fast. It is possible that there was a piece of dirt stuck in that seat, and just the ride over to my house cleaned it up, and that piece of dirt's now gone, and it may be sealing like it's supposed to. But the fuel that I'm smelling smells pretty stale. I don't have a lot of experience with racing fuels, but it definitely has a different smell coming out of here than it does in the tank of the bike. See, I think we've given that enough time to see if it was going to overflow. I am going to pull this clamp, the fuel supply. I do want to see what's actually coming out of here. I want to make sure that this shutoff valve is working like it's supposed to and allowing fuel to come through. So let's pull this clamp up, make sure that we have a good supply coming to the carburetor. If we do, then we're going to listen to the original complaint and see about taking this carburetor apart, see what we can find. Pull that up. Let's shut this valve off just in case we have a really good supply. We can control it, make sure the valve's working like it's supposed to. Mikuni carburetor. Well, that part's working like it's supposed to. The shutoff valve, that is. Working like it's supposed to. The fuel coming out's really red. And it's got a little bit different smell than what was coming out of the carburetor originally. So let's pull the throttle off of here so that we can get into the body of the carburetor. And if I can't get all this gas out of here, I'm going to put some gloves on, rubber gloves on, try to keep this fuel from leaching into your skin. You notice I didn't have to use a pair of pliers to take that off of there, right? So I'm just going to pull that valve out. It is keyed. It has a slot on this side and it has a slot on the other side that is lower, and that matches up with the body of the carburetor. Inside the carburetor looks fairly clean. We are going to be checking that jet there at the very bottom. That's the main jet. But most importantly, I have a feeling we're going to be looking for something in the bottom of this float bowl, because that's where we would get to the needle and seat that would allow this to shut off and turn back on. Let's get a screwdriver and get this thing on the bench. Very pungent smelling. So let's get our bearings. This overflow tube comes out on the choke side, basically in the same corner as the choke, and which has that valve coming off at that angle. Overflow comes off on the other side. Basically it should be the air cleaner side, so because this right here is your intake side. Just getting my bearings so that when we go to put it back together it works like it's supposed to. I don't have to take it apart too many times to fix it. So we couldn't duplicate the problem. The next best thing to do after that is go after the original complaint and see if you see any remnants or any ideas or evidence of the original complaint. So what I'm looking for will be dirt, debris, sand, particles, things like that. I don't know if you'll notice I put on a set of gloves because the fuel was basically just running out and I don't want any long-term effects from it. Using the back side of the screwdriver, the handle, to just knock it loose. comes on there pretty good. And yeah, we've got crusties, and you can kind of see as this stuff right here would have come loose. Got a whole bunch of crusties in there. I'm guessing that the jet, this right here would be your main jet, probably is going to be stuffed up with debris. Let's get the fuel drained out of it. So in normal condition, let's see, get you like that. In normal condition, when you turn the fuel on, the fuel fills up the bowl, and then as the fuel fills up, the float rises, and when that float rises, it shoves the needle that's right in the middle here up into the seat and shuts it off. And I can tell you that I can feel it binding just a little bit when I'm doing that. So I guarantee there's some debris in there. We're going to put this one in the ultrasonic cleaner and get it cleaned up, because this is surprising, because even I know that he only runs racing fuel in this thing, so I don't know where all of this dirt and stuff came from. Anyway, let's get it apart, get it in the ultrasonic cleaner. Let it have a bath and boil for a little bit. Take out our needle. It's still pliable, or whatever you want to call it. Supple, I guess, is the right word. It's got a little bit of a ring around it. That may be a deal killer right there. If we can't get it to seal off, then that's going to be our culprit. Try to get that cleaned up. Wow. Got our 8mm. Pull out the main jet. Yeah, there's a lot of dirt in there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a lot of dirt. All of those, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a lot of dirt in those holes, and there's no way that that would have worked like you wanted it to. Let's get that out. Let's pull out our needle and seat, or excuse me, our seat. That gasket comes off, we're going to take it off, otherwise we'll just leave it there. Oh, doesn't come off easy, we're leaving it. And I believe this is your idle circuit. Again, it's got passage holes, things like that. We're going to want to clean all that out, because whatever got in there definitely did a number on everything. So, and I think it was just time, but look at all this I'm taking out of here. Let's get it in the ultrasonic cleaner and do the size of the carburetor. We're not going to be able to put this in a smaller jar, so I'm just going to have to use more chemical. I would like to get this gasket off of here before putting it in there if I can, but I don't want to destroy it. Tell you what, let's just leave it on, and if I have to do a rebuild kit, I can do that. Wow, there's a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, let's leave that gasket on there for now and see if we can clean this thing without taking all that apart. This has a very aromatic smell. Fuel that's been around for a long time and is also a really high octane. No sense in putting the float in there because it's just going to float to the top anyway, so we have to just wipe that off by hand. I'm going to get a little bit of purple power in here, maybe about a capful or two, some hot water, and we're going to put this thing on an ultrasonic cleaning cycle for about 30 minutes, and then clean it all out. Since the watching it clean doesn't do anything and it's really noisy on the camera, I'll come back as soon as it's done. So the ultrasonic went for a half an hour. Had the heat on Celsius, I think it's like 54. It was in the video. I'm going to use air and some brushes, clean the rest of this stuff out of here. Try to get all the passages and everything else cleaned up the best I can. It doesn't go into the, it has a terrible time with the audio and the video. So I'm just going to be blowing all this through, and I'll turn the audio back on as soon as I'm done. Alright, that looks a lot better. Now I'm just looking through all of the holes, making sure everything I can see daylight through. The ultrasonic with that cleaner does a really good job, or else you could take a strand of wire off of like an 18 gauge stranded wire or something, and poke little holes through it just to make sure all those are clear, or a really small drill index. You can use either of those. So this needle that's attached to your float bowl, to the float itself, pushes up into this seat. When the fuel is coming in, when this puts pressure on this valve, it stops the fuel from coming past that. It's got a rubber tip to it. I was saying that this was kind of binding. Right? So this is fairly clean looking right now, but we are going to clean out this. So a little bit of carb cleaner on a Q-tip. Just spin it back and forth, clean it out in there. I've saved quite a few seats doing this. You can actually put it in the end of a drill and spin it faster if it's necessary, but it's a machined surface. You want it as clean as possible. So just do a good job cleaning up that seat area. So this is your seat. Sometimes they have a O-ring at the bottom of them, or a seat itself, and you can pull it out and put a new one in. This style is it's machined brass, so it's made up against that surface. So the gasket, red gasket, goes right on there. Probably would have been easier had I done reverse order here and put the main jet on second. I thought I heard some of y'all yelling in the background. Don't put that on yet. As a matter of fact, yep, I just realized something else. You guys were right. I shouldn't have put it on just yet, because I have to put the idle jet on first also, and there's no way to get it past that cup right there. You guys were right. You guys were right. I appreciate you looking out for me. So aluminum body, brass fitting, you don't want to over tighten these. And it doesn't take much to over tighten them. So made sure all those holes are see-through, and then the center hole, you can see light all the way through it. That one I am going to shoot a little bit of carb cleaner through just to be double sure. Safety glasses. Idle jet in. That's the fuel supply it uses when it is in when it's idling, obviously. I'm going to clean some of that off of there. Just a little bit of a Scotch pad. Alright, let's make sure to push some air through it again. Don't want any debris in there. But basically I'm looking through all of these little holes on the bottom here. Make sure I can see daylight through the other side. I think that plastic cup is basically like a splash guard. Keeps the fuel kind of centered. That way on a racing bike or a dirt bike, and you know all the different angles it can get to. I think that's kind of like your baffles inside your gas tank that allow the gauge to read properly. I think it's doing the same thing. If that's wrong, comment in the drop a comment in the comment section. I believe that's what it's for. Actually, even if it's not, drop a comment in the comment section. I appreciate listening to you guys. I almost did it again, didn't I? Oh, that's right. It goes on like that. That drops down into that. What I'm checking right now is to see if I had put this back on the right direction. So if it was upside down, this would have been way down here, and it would have been bottoming out on that. So just making sure that it doesn't go beyond the bottom of the carburetor, the float bowl itself. So overflow hose. The fuel level gets up so high it can reach that hose. It comes out of that hole right there that we were trying to look at earlier. So had the carburetor, the seat not sealed off, it would have just drained out there. And then finally, this one has a much larger, some of them have a small screw that opens up and allows it to drain out, to drain all the bottom fuel out. This one's just a large nut, like a drain for an oil pan for a car. Allows you to drain all the gasoline out of here. Let it store for the winter. Okay. We say this came off of this angle up here. Something like that. I did not pull the gasket off of here, which is why you don't see me putting a new one on. I think it was about like that, wasn't it, guys? And girls. I was raised saying y'all and guys to mean everybody. And luckily I have teenagers to correct me on a regular basis. So what we're going to do is I'm going to blow into here in this position. Air should move because the float would be down. I'm going to flip it over and try to blow through it, and it should seal off because it's upside down and the float is closed. So unfortunately I can't do that on camera. There we go. That works. This is your enrichener, by the way. It's kind of like a choke. All it's doing is allowing this passage in here to be able to see through. Allows air to get through. I'm trying to show you guys. When you pull it out, all it's doing is opening that passageway. Hopefully you can see that. That's called your enrichener. Alright, let's get this thing back on the bike and see if we made progress. Okay, I talked about there is a key. So this one is up high. This one here is up high. This one down here is really low. This would be your idle speed adjustment, because you thread that in, and what it's doing is raising and lowering this slant right here. So it's raising and lowering this. This is metering how much air and fuel you can actually get. So this is, when this comes up, you're allowing air to go through the carburetor, and then it is in unison with the fuel valve that is controlling how much fuel can come through that main jet. So anyway, like I said, it's got a keyway on this side and then a smaller keyway on this side, so it only goes in one direction. So you always make sure that it can seat all the way down. And if it doesn't line up, you'll see it won't drop down. So as soon as I'm lined up, it should drop all the way in like that. This is a very fine thread on here, so I always go backwards first until it clicks, and then I try threading it forward. Once we get to the very end, we'll check it just to make sure that it works like it's supposed to. I'm holding the rubber grommet from spinning. This one just happens to be catching a little bit. All I'm doing is just trying to keep it from twisting. So just hand tight, and then we're going to turn the throttle and make sure that it works and snaps back like it's supposed to. Yep, that looks good. Let's get it back on the bike. Let's see if that helps you guys see any better. I know it's going to help me see better. I don't want to pull this air box off because it looks like it's a chore to get it back in. Unless I'm mistaken, it looks like it's all one piece. So just sliding this boot up on to the air box as far as I possibly can. Would have been nice to do that before I got that carburetor wiggled in there. I need that clamp to be able to get back on there, so let's get that in place. I'm sure there's an easy way to get these air boxes out of here, and I see a couple of bolts up here, but I'm just being lazy and cheating today. It's probably gonna make me do extra work just because I didn't do it the right way. Make sure the carburetor's sitting like we want it to. I'm sure there was an easier way to do that. And I would imagine taking that air box off would have been it, but I didn't see an easy way to do it. The intake side of the carburetor is the most critical. You want this side sealed up really good. Any type of leak after the fuel and air have been metered through the carburetor will cause a lean running condition. The air filter side, you're just trying to keep dust out. If you guys can't see, I'm just tightening up the hose clamp on that connects the air box to the carburetor. Okay. Verify. You can try to push on the clamps and that'll kind of tell you if they're tight or not. Make sure everything's lined up, everything's seated all the way. Let's grab the fuel line. Put it back on. We've already verified that fuel flows like it's supposed to. I don't want to waste any more than I have to. Put that on. That's kind of funny because this nut that we talked about for getting rid of any kind of fuel, the one at the bottom of this carburetor, there's no way you'd be able to pull that off as tight as it is in here. Anyway, let's turn on the fuel. Make sure that it doesn't start leaking now that we've done a rebuild on it. I'm gonna let this sit for about 5 minutes, make sure no fuel starts leaking out anywhere, and I'll be back with you guys. It's been about 5 or 10 minutes. It has not leaked a drop. Kind of curious to see if it's going to fire up. Appears to be in neutral right now. So let's open up the enricher valve. The fuel's already on, obviously. The kill button is just a momentary push button, so I'm guessing not pushed is in the start position. So there's a Kickstarter on this side. The oil level has a window on the side of it, and it's halfway in that window right now. I don't know if you have to hold the clutch in or not. So I'm going to hold the clutch and the brake and see if it makes a difference. So this is a little bit embarrassing. I was trying to get this thing to run properly. Come to find out, it won't run properly because it had a plug in the exhaust pipe. I'm assuming to keep moisture or rainwater or something out. Anyway, that is since been removed. It actually found its own way out through pressure. I think it's actually running pretty good now. I think that's going to do it for this episode. Bike probably could use a little bit more work. I'll go through. I heard some clicking noises coming from the water pump. I'm not sure if that's normal or not. Going to get a hold of the owner who knows quite a bit about these bikes. Fuel is definitely not leaking anymore. It revs really quick. It's way too small for me to try to ride. I'll definitely hurt myself. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and you guys got anything out of this video or enjoyed it, I would really appreciate a subscribe or a thumbs up. It helps the channel tremendously. Thanks for tuning in.